Welcome back, party people, to another episode of the Whatnauts review show. This is episode 58. It's weird for me because we're doing it at night. We usually do this Sunday morning. But here we are, Sunday night, while everyone is watching the last episode of Game of Thrones. I think that's
Is that today?
Tonight. I don't know.
Is that next
I
week?
don't watch that show. I don't really care, so that's me.
Well, I just hope I figure out who wins that game.
I just want to know if winter finally came.
I want to know if they got off the island or not.
It's like to me it's like Star Wars. Why is it called Star Wars? There's only one war. Why is it called Game of Thrones? There's only one fucking throne. I don't know. I've seen the first 2 seasons of that. I think a little bit past the Red Wedding, and it's not for me. I'm not a big fan of high fantasy stuff anyways, but oh well.
Oh well.
Here we are, episode
It's
58
night.
of the review show. We're going to be talking about a movie from 2011 called Attack the Block. Starring Jodie Whittaker and John Boyega.
Yes.
In case you guys were unawares, my name is Kyle Springer,
Oh,
and I
we
am
didn't
joined.
even say our own dang names, Kyle.
Yeah, we haven't yet. And joining me, as always, is Melissa Wilkinson. Melissa,
It's
how
me.
are you doing?
I'm good, Kyle. I was in a wedding yesterday.
You've had a very busy week.
Oh dang. Yes, I did. And this is why we are doing the rare night recording, because I knew ahead of time I'm going to need to sleep till noon. And that's what I did.
Hey, guess who also slept till noon and didn't go to a wedding?
Yeah, you didn't have to be out of your house for 16 straight hours.
No, I did not. Hey Sam, we see you in the
Hi,
chat
Sam.
there. Yes, for people who did not know, this is a live show, and I am about to sneeze.
Ah!
Nope.
Oh, dang. That
It was
only means
one
it's
of those ones that was like,
postponed. It's not canceled.
it was like, you're gonna do it, you're gonna do it, you're gonna do it. No, okay, no. I totally lost my train of thought.
We were talking about how this is a live show,
yes,
but only for our Patreon supporters.
exactly. At the $1 tier,
Just one.
$1 a month, you can get access to the live streams of this show, usually every Sunday at noon Eastern time. Today we are doing it at a little bit different time. Let's see. What else happened? I've read a bunch of comics this weekend.
Yes.
I've been on like a comic reading binge weekend. So it's been a good weekend for me.
It sounds good.
Yeah. Let's start introducing Attack the Block.
Yeah.
'Cause I think this is going to be a fun one to talk about. Let's see. So Attack the Block, I mentioned, came out in 2011. See, you sneezed.
How'd you
didn't
send
sneeze.
that to me?
I
Across the U.S.
I sent you an e-sneeze. So this is a film from 2011, starring John Boyega and Jodie Whittaker. Takes place on Guy Fawkes Night, in which they are out in South London having a good old time. Jodie Whittaker is walking home and gets mugged by a local street gang who just so happens to live in the same building that she does. And things start getting out of hand when aliens attack. And it all goes to shit after that.
Yeah, I'd say that's an appropriate summary of the movie.
Yeah. This is one that I've had on my list of like movies to watch, TV shows, just stuff like, hey, I think I might like that. I need to take note, and I just never got to it.
Yeah.
I saw GIFs on Twitter and Tumblr and all of that stuff, and I was like, that looks really cool. And if I'm not mistaken, I think this was one of the, or if not the movie that got John Boyega noticed for Star Wars. I'm not sure how long before this they started casting
Oh
or
yeah, I don't
whatnot,
know.
but who knows?
And Jodie Whittaker is the new Doctor Who. I watched this entire movie saying, "Where do I know this face? Where do I know this name?" And it's like the middle of the next day that I'm like, "Doctor Who!
Oh,
It's
yeah,
her. She's the new one."
Doctor Who. I've actually never seen an episode of Doctor Who.
I've seen sporadic episodes. That's like one that, like Game of Thrones, it's one of the biggest things that is just on my periphery, and I don't know if it's going to get any closer.
I watch why am I blanking on the name? It's the CW show Legends of Tomorrow. It's the DC Universe show in with Arrow and the Flash, and it's basically a mix of Guardians of the Galaxy and Doctor Who, like in one big thing. So instead of just like one doctor and his sidekick there, it's a whole team of idiots and stuff, and they are time traveling and all sorts of stuff. But yeah. So when I pitched this to you, what were you expecting?
This was I think you and I were in the same boat about this, which doesn't
Okay.
always happen. But yeah, for me too, I had heard about it for years. I'd heard it was really good. I knew the basic concept of it. I knew those aliens
Yeah.
that are like they've got these neon glowing mouths and their fur is like nega black, like blacker
Pitch
than
black.
anything else can be. Yes, yes, like it absorbs all
have-
of the light.
Yeah, have you seen that black paint that can do that?
Okay,
I
let me
don't
Google
know.
really black paint.
I don't know what it's called exactly, but there's this paint that absorbs like so much light that yeah.
Now I'm scared.
It like that's what those monsters look like, except for their like glowing like teal mouths.
I was hanging out with an old boyfriend of mine, and he had this giant all black German Shepherd.
Mm-hmm.
And we're sitting there in the dark. We're just watching a movie, and she's over in the corner, kind of out of the light of the TV screen. And she's gnawing on this like glow in the dark tennis ball that they make glow in the dark so that when you like throw it and the dog doesn't immediately catch it, you can spot where it's supposed to be and like go get it.
Yeah.
And she's just gnawing on this thing. And I'm like, she looks like one of those Attack the Block monsters, like this all black creature with just this neon glow in her mouth. So I knew the images from this movie. I knew the concept. And I'm like, it's about time. Like I sit down and I actually watch this thing. And I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. So Sam mentions it's kind of like the demon in the Netflix Castlevania anime, which I haven't seen. Yeah, so I don't know. But if you know, then you know. But yeah, I really liked this. I knew I would. I think maybe it started off maybe like the first minute and a half I was like, I don't know, something about this is already rubbing me the wrong way.
Really?
I didn't really know what it was, and then within the first like 10 minutes I was like, I'm sold. I'm so, like,
yes.
I like, this is everything that I like. This is everything that I want. It's very fast paced. It very much just here's what's happening. Here's the like it's not like this thing where the aliens come after the or like at the end of the first act. They are right there at the start.
In like the first 10 minutes probably.
Yeah.
Another thing I really like about this movie is that it takes place entirely over like 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah.
Like it's really compressed over that one night. That's something I always really enjoy in a story. And there's no explanation for anything. There's no scientist saying like, oh, well, I don't know about these aliens, but based on their morphology, they're kind of like this earth animal. Like the smartest person they have is just a guy who watches a lot of National Geographic.
Yeah.
Like there
is that one guy who's high and he's like, wait,
yeah,
maybe it's like this because I watched this like Planet Earth documentary.
Like there's no explanation, there's no context. everybody's
It just
kind of on the
happens.
same playing field and they just have to figure out what to do. Like there's nobody they can turn to.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of sci-fi stuff, so
Yeah.
aliens and robots and all of that stuff is neat. Even more cyberpunk, like glowing neon stuff, which was
Mhm.
incorporated into these monsters. I loved. I think if you're a big fan of like anime or comic books, you will love this.
I
It has that kind of attitude.
What it reminded me of most, because our real protagonist for this movie is John Boyega and his sort of gang that he hangs out
Hmm.
with. And they're all like teenagers. He's 16, the rest of them are probably around there. There's two other like 9-year-old boys that live in their
They were
apartment complex
fantastic.
that are like scampering after them and trying also to be these like tough street guys.
Hmm.
That aspect of it reminded me of like the Goonies or Monster Squad or
Yeah.
Stranger Things or something like that. That kind of kids on bikes, like nighttime adventure. So this just felt like a really advanced, like high stakes life or death version of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, So I would highly recommend people go check this out if they have not watched it yet. It was a lot of fun. I will say that
Yeah.
there was more horror aspects to
Yes.
this than I knew of.
It can get pretty brutal. I was a little surprised by how brutal it was. I was expecting more like a straight down the middle, like sci-fi action adventure
Hmm.
comedy. Yeah, it does get pretty deep into like horror.
Yeah, which I was not expecting in the slightest. I was
Yeah.
expecting it just to be more just like sci-fi action.
Hmm.
But yeah, there a bit, and I guess to clarify, the horror stuff I'm talking about is more like gory.
Yeah,
If that
yeah, it
like
gets a
there's
little
some
violent.
there's yeah
There
there's a
are there
couple very
elevators full of
visceral
blood? Yes.
moments. Yeah, exactly. Um, do you have anything else you might want to say about it before we move into housekeeping and spoilers?
No, it's a fairly simple premise, and I think we got it. I think we got it.
Cool.
So let's clean our house and let's really dive on into this thing.
Exactly. So last week we did an episode on Brave.
Yes.
I don't remember what year it came out, but the Disney and Pixar film.
2012.
There you go. So not long after this film.
Yeah, both pretty recent.
That was our pseudo Mother's Day
Yeah.
episode. So you guys should go check that one out as well. It's a fantastic
Mhm.
film. If you guys wanted to hear more about Melissa's crazy busy week and all the wedding shenanigans and stuff like that, we had an
Yeah.
episode of The Captain's Log, in which you explain all of the shenanigans you got
Yeah, like the
into there.
bachelorette party and everything I've had to run around doing. I found time somehow to go to a Broadway musical and a rock concert over the last week.
There
I
you
did
go.
so many things, and you can go hear me talk about them.
Hmm. We also have a brand new episode of the Reactor Core out, all on Detective
Yeah.
Pikachu. It's out a little bit later than we wanted to. We had to postpone our recording, but I got that out ASAP. And here we are recording yet another episode of the review show.
Mhm.
Let's get into spoilers.
Yeah, let's do it. Mm.
Aha! There we go. Have you gone back to look at the spoiler alert thing yet?
God, not yet. Tonight.
Do it,
Tonight I will
Melissa.
do it.
Before you go to bed. Yes, we are in spoiler territory now. So if you have not seen this film, go check it out. We'll be here when you get back. It's actually kind of a coincidence that you mentioned Doctor Who, and then I
Uh-huh.
happened to mention Legends of Tomorrow because one of the actors in this is also in Legends of Tomorrow.
Oh.
The guy who had the dog, I don't remember the actor's name, the one who had the
Oh.
motorcycle helmet, and he's the one whose head
He's-
got popped
Yeah, and
off at that one.
is he the one that was kind of like an angular mohawk, sort of? That guy,
That
yeah.
guy, he plays Firestorm, or one half
Okay.
of Firestorm in the DC Arrowverse thing. So
All
I
right.
saw him. I was like, oh well, I know him too.
I really loved the cast in this movie.
Yeah,
These are a lot of like younger actors. They all do an incredible job. Like I look at John Boyega and I definitely can see why, Lucasfilm picked him out like
Mhm.
that guy. He's going to be one of the major players in this new trilogy we're building.
Yeah,
And I've only seen him in this and in Star Wars. I've yet to see any of his other roles. And he's playing something so different in this character's name is Moses.
Moses. Yep.
Yeah, Moses is a lot different than Finn in that he's the leader of the gang. Like everybody's following him and he's like
Yeah,
very serious and very quiet and very stoic and also like there's this deep like tragedy and tension inside of him. It was a fascinating performance to watch. And like after seeing him in Star Wars where his Finn is just sort of figuring things out and along for the ride and trying to help how he can. It's like, oh, it's nice to see John Boyega be the one in charge.
exactly. it's it's interesting to me because I think one of the things I maybe didn't like about this film was, or not even that I didn't like, but I think the one thing that I imagine people will like the least is
Uh-huh.
maybe some of the, because some of these actors were so young, they don't necessarily have as much like experience underneath them. So some of the line deliveries are just like, all right, well, I guess that's what happened. It's just not the best deliveries from time to
Hmm.
time, but it's not like there's so much going for this film that I think it's something
Yes.
that like it's not even
Hmm.
really worth mentioning or talking about.
Yeah.
Just like it happened. Let's move
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, like you mentioned that and like I can't maybe it's because it's been a while since I watched this movie, like basically right after we decided on it last week, I
We watched
watched
it
it
a
and
week
it's
ago.
like
Yeah.
which is longer than it usually is when we're doing the show. So I'm
The
not
one,
pulling anything up out of my head
so if I
immediately.
did have to kind of sit and pull out a scene in my head, there is one when all of the aliens start falling from the sky, when they know it's more than just one, and they are like, oh yeah, this is our moment, we can go get all the weapons and all that stuff and we
Mhm.
can kick some ass. That when they're looking out the window and kind of turn to all go get their stuff, there's just this corniness to the whole thing, and it
It's
like,
it is a little corny. I think because that is the closest it gets to Goonies territory.
sure,
Like it's the most childlike and earnest, and it does sort of feel odd next to, oh, these are the kids that mugged that lady walking home
like
like
it's,
15 minutes ago.
I don't even know if it's the line deliveries anymore. I'm wondering if it's the writing, and it's just like, hey, this is some 30 or 40-year-old guy who wrote this. Who knows? I actually,
Hmm.
let's see if Wikipedia will
Yeah,
say who
the
wrote this.
dialogue in this movie is
Written by Joe
fascinating.
Cornish. So Joe Cornish is also the guy that directed this film. He also helped to write the Ant-Man film. Um,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know much of his other work. It doesn't look like he has too much. But it appears to be almost a case of like, here's this older person trying to write
Yeah.
dialogue for a 14-year-old kid, you know?
Mhm.
And it's just like, that may not be exactly
That
what they would say, but
I
oh well.
I am so intrigued by the dialogue in this movie because it is jam-packed
Yeah.
with all of this slang. Like I was watching this with subtitles and I don't know if I would be able to get it at all if I didn't have those subtitles. They also have like some
I
thicker British accents. So it's a lot to take in and it takes you a while to kind of find your footing, like a couple examples, a couple contexts, and you're like,
yeah.
okay, all right, when they say that, that's what that means. All right. And I don't know how much of it is really authentic or maybe it was authentic but nobody says that anymore. I don't know what it actually is but it felt like I could believe it.
Yeah, so I also kind of mentioned I don't think it really matters all that much if the line
No.
delivery was all that, just because it has so much going for it. Um, because yeah, it's so fast paced. It keeps moving. There's so much that happens. There's so much to look at.
Hmm.
But I think, yeah, like it's I don't know. Now I guess based off of what I said, it seems like I'm getting hung up on this like line delivery thing where it was just some like small thing. I was like, that line was kind of cheesy. Oh well, who cares?
Mhm. It'll happen.
Yeah.
I think the thing about the dialogue, to kind of clarify what I was saying, is that I don't know if all of the individual slangs that they had are all like real things, or people, or like words that people really were using in that way at the time this
Mhm.
movie was put out. But the fact that there is that much like slang and jargon and metaphor, no matter what it is,
Here's what I was gonna
feels
say.
believable to like this tight knit community of kids.
Mhm.
Like they would make up words or like pick up words from their friends or from, I don't know, TV or songs or whatever, and just
Yeah.
like use the heck out of them.
Yeah. So I was kind of fumbling over my words just a
Mhm.
second ago because I had something to say and then I forgot what it was. Um, but it's the idea of you watched it with the subtitles.
Yes.
I did not.
Oh.
I understood
Hmm.
all of it, but yeah, there's some slang that I don't necessarily understand, but I never felt like I was missing out because
No,
I
yeah.
didn't understand the slang. It is more about what's like you can understand what's happening just by watching it and seeing the reactions on their
Yes.
faces.
Yeah, you always get the gist of anything that's going on. You might miss a joke here or there,
Yeah,
but like the feelings always come
yeah,
through.
and I think that really translates. I feel like you could watch this on silent and understand exactly what's
Yeah, I
happening,
think you could.
which is maybe a testament to the storytelling within
Yeah.
the film, and just it shows you everything you need to know.
Hmm.
There's not big like expository, well, here's what happened and here's how these aliens are making this thing and that thing. So, anyways, what do you want to talk about next?
Ah. I want to say that I was startled by the body count in this movie.
Okay.
I was expecting like one or two like big deaths, maybe. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, one of these kids in the group has fallen and we're gonna avenge him or something like that. Something a little bit more traditional to this kind of action adventure young adult story. No, like a lot of that main group dies. A lot of their like friends die.
Yeah,
And like who knows what's happening. And this is happening
maybe some apartments for rent in
yeah.
their block.
And like we're seeing everything mostly focused around like that apartment building,
Uh-huh.
and it's not super widespread. It goes out to like the neighborhood, I think, but you have to imagine like what's happening outside of that building
Yeah,
that we don't even get to see.
yeah.
Like
There's
based on what we see here, probably more dead bodies.
Yeah, I'm sure there's people along the way who are just out on a walk
Hmm.
or something that just happened to get in the way of these things as they're hunting down this female,
Hmm.
um, of their species. Which, funny enough, one of the comics that I was reading this
Uh-huh.
weekend used a similar plot device where
Oh.
I was raiding Secret Empire from Marvel
Hmm.
Comics, and they kidnapped. This is like a very side thing that is mentioned in that story, and you don't see it all that much. But they kidnapped a bunch of these aliens, and it's all of the like female eggs that they kidnapped, and they hid them around the earth and then like sealed the earth in this big shield, so all of these aliens are coming to like attack the earth, but there's people trapped outside of the Earth that are just are
Mhm.
like stuck there, so they're like
Yeah.
stuck in between a rock and a hard place. So it's like we can't go home, but there's all these aliens right here about to attack us, you know. So, but yeah, I liked that it was all in that like mostly in that one apartment. But I'll
Mhm.
get back to
Yeah,
that.
I do really like the compressed space and the compressed time. This is almost like a bottle movie.
Almost, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so for the death count, I feel like once I understood the tone of this film,
Mhm.
then it makes a lot more sense. It is this
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
very aggressive, very in your face kind of attitude where it's like, yeah, you want to see some people get in a bloody fight and like, oh, that guy's head came off. Oh,
Yeah,
good, you
yeah, I
know.
think, like, when the first death happens, then I was like, "Oh, okay, that is these are the rules you were playing
So this
by."
is what we're going for. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, who was the first to die? It was well,
Ah,
there's
was it the kid with the mohawk?
well, no, because there were the cops before that, but
Okay.
was the dog even before that?
The first one might have been the dog, yeah.
Was the dog
And
or
that's
dog?
not that's something a lot like, not a lot of movies are going to pull that. Like,
That the
you
first
know,
one is a dog.
or, like, to kill a dog at all, that's normally something like, okay, the dog's gonna get right up to, like, death's door, but we are going to, keep the dog. We're killing a
See,
dog is worse than killing a person. Like,
yeah, but it makes you be like, all right, now let's go fuck some
ex-
shit up,
exactly, yeah.
which is the
So the
whole
fact
story
that
of
they
John
did
Wick.
that, yeah, yeah. So the fact that they did that, I think, is your first clue. Like, nope, this is get ready for stuff to get real brutal.
Yeah,
Like, nobody's really safe here.
yeah. Um, yeah. So they set the tone, I think, very early on, which was nice, and I think that's what sold me because I mentioned at the
Mhm.
start I was like, all right, I don't really know if this is gonna end up turning out to be so like I don't know, like I just had this feeling like there was
Also,
nothing that I could be like, oh, it was that turned me off to the first like
I
10 minutes.
I think what it might be is that the movie starts with Jodie Whittaker. We're kind of following her like as she's leaving work and as she's like, on the not on the subway, on the
Hiccupy.
tube. I'm sorry, England. So, on the tube or she's
Boy,
walking
governor.
home and she's walking home and she's like talking with her mom on the phone. And it's like then like a couple minutes into the
Mhm.
movie that, Moses and his gang stop her
He's
and try
kind
to.
of presented as the bad guy.
Yeah, like the movie kind of starts out on Jodie Whittaker's side, which makes sense, but because she is not the ultimate protagonist, it is kind of an odd footing to be on.
To start with, yeah.
Yeah, and she is in the very beginning, like the first time you see her and the first time you see Moses, clearly he's the way more interesting character.
Yeah.
But I understand, like, that's the twist. Like, you're gonna watch this woman get mugged, and then you're going to follow the muggers for the rest of the movie.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
I think it makes for a very, I was gonna say compact, but that might not even be the right word. This whole movie is condensed and is
Yeah,
just
and it's
packed
not
full of
very
so much
long.
stuff.
It's like a nice, neat, like 90, 100 minutes or something
But
like that. There's a
yeah, but
lot in it.
I think the point I'm trying to make is I think it sets up a really nice, I guess you could say, hero's journey for
Yeah.
Moses's character, where he starts out as this scumbag of just
Hmm.
like, hey, you're a 15-year-old kid who's mugging people and selling drugs and all of that stuff, and then even worse things
Hmm.
happen. These aliens come and like just the whole circumstances of
Yeah.
what is their reality changes, and he has to kind of reconcile at like his what he's doing, and it's like, all right, we just mugged you, but we need your help.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
need to deal with that. And then, yeah, they have this moment where they kind of have to put aside all of the stuff that
Mhm.
happened. Eventually, they learn to kind of trust one another. And by
Yeah.
the end, yeah, there's that. That's like, I think the end scene is one of the best scenes where he's being arrested at the end of this
Mhm.
film, and by time he gets put in the van, the whole crowd is chanting,
Yeah.
Moses, Moses,
Yes.
Moses. like that's so cool, just to
Yeah.
have that kind of redemption arc,
Mhm.
which, who knows how much that really holds, but in in terms of his character, you've come to really love
Mhm.
him, of just
Yes.
like, this is he is a cool dude.
Yeah, yeah, and the scene where they do have to go to Jodie Whittaker for help. Do you remember her character's name?
Her name was Samantha Adams.
Okay. So when they mug her, they like get her wallet and includes her ID badge, and so they know she's a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why they find her and they go to her later on because like one of the kids
And
is
it's hurt.
injured, they need her help. They find out she lives in the same building, they can try and hide out in her apartment. Like they go to her for help and they're trying to convince her like, "Oh, we're sorry about the mugging. It's not that big of a deal. These aliens, those are the big deal. So like we really kind of need you on our side and we need to band together about this." And she's like, "You guys mugged me at knife point earlier. Like, no, I'm not going to help you." And the
Yeah,
movie has set us up to be like kind of on everybody's side. Like we really understand and sympathize with everyone's perspective in that
yeah,
scene, which was very well done.
yeah. Which, I if when I imagine a movie like this, and
Mhm.
like with all the right ingredients that I like in a film, I often I feel like this may have been my thing. Like, I it has all the right stuff. I want it to be good. It can't be good because it has everything that I like.
Okay,
it
yeah.
it might be that, and then it's, yeah. So I think the fact that it can do that, where there's a scene where you understand everyone's perspective and you agree with all of them, just like,
Mhm.
I don't even know who to root for. She's right, but he's right, and they're right,
Yeah.
and he's an asshole, but I like him. And
Mhm.
it's stuff like that, and that I think really makes you fall in love with this film.
Yeah, and we haven't even gotten up to the top floor of the building with Nick Frost, and Hi Hat is the real villain of this movie.
Or you're one of them, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's the one character I think we're not supposed to have any sympathy for.
Yeah.
He's the most brutal of all of them. And then that one, I forget his name, but the really stoned guy. I love him.
Well,
I
there's
love that
Ron, who is the
that's
guy who
Nick
has the
Frost.
apartment. Yeah, I
But
guess that's
no,
his
it's like
name.
the
I don't know.
guy with like the hoodie and like the headphones hanging around his neck. I love that he was like he's around through the entire movie and he like frankly says at one point, "I'd love to help you. I am
Brewis, I think, is his name.
Brewis." Yeah, he's a weird name, some weird British name.
Brewis.
Yeah.
Brewis.
He's like, "I would love to help you, but I am stoned out of my mind. I can't do anything more than just sit here." And they're like, "Yeah, okay, well, what are we gonna do? Sure, sit there."
Yeah.
I really liked his inclusion in this movie.
They have such a strong sense of characters in
Yeah.
this film, because we also mentioned, what were their two names? It was uh
Oh,
Probs and Mayhem were the two younger kids.
trust
I
me.
think they were
They're
my favorite
great.
characters of this whole
Yes.
thing, but they're almost not in it, at
They're in
like
it just enough.
just enough. But I wanted more. They're so good. They're so funny, and you're just like, man, like, it's another one of those things. Like, I understand Moses's perspective. He's like, no, go home. Like, do your homework.
Yeah.
Go do something else. Like, we're the ones out here doing bad things, and
Yeah, and like
you're still a
they
child. Like, you can have
exactly.
something better. But they're just like, no, we want to help, and they have a squirt gun and a cap gun, and it's just like, what are you doing? Yeah, they make you fall in love with the characters by their
Yeah.
expressions, by just the stupid
Uh,
things that they do and
yeah,
have
the
there.
we didn't get to the girls either. There's so many characters in this movie.
Yeah.
I liked all the girls. I like that going to like the girls' apartment is like their last bastion. Like, well, okay. She doesn't really like us, but we can try her. Like they try this nurse that they robbed earlier before they try just the other girls at
some
school. Tease
some
them.
random woman that they
Yeah,
mugged before their sisters and cousins,
yeah,
their own family.
yeah, yeah. Like I think some of them are like sisters or cousins, and there's like a girl that Moses likes, and she doesn't
Yeah.
like him back, and she's like, "You cause trouble everywhere you go. That's why I don't like you. Look, you just brought aliens into my apartment."
Yeah. Yeah, and it's one of those completely like just all not alternate, but just completely opposite, where these young boys are out there with fireworks and baseball bats, and they're
Yeah.
causing trouble, and then the girls are inside, like looking at magazines and listening
Yes.
to music, and it's just, like they're so calm. I mean, they're gossiping and stuff like
Mhm.
that. They're doing stuff, but they're just they're like they seem almost closed off to just everything that's
Yeah.
happening, that is actually happening
And I think
around them,
that's
despite
that's
them
one of the
looking
points.
into all of these like pop culture magazines and stuff like that.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons why they go there is that that girl's apartment has this extra secure door. They're
Hmm.
like she's one of the most physically safe places we can be in this entire building.
Yeah, yeah, but it's this complete opposite, where they're just almost oblivious,
Yes.
and yeah, it's this, when they get to sit there and finally like talk and all of that, or even just the scene when the one dude is in the dumpster and he's just talking nonstop on the phone, and they're
Yes.
just like, what is he even talking about?
Yeah.
Fucking weirdo. Like,
I liked
what
the thing
is
about the
wrong with
phone.
boys?
Like all of them, like they've got a limited number of minutes and a limited number of messages. So like it's not very easy for them to get the word out. And like every time they
Yeah.
communicate to somebody, it like really costs them.
Yeah, I mean that was. I mean, it's still a thing to have minutes, but
Mm,
it's not as common.
yeah,
I
and I
think it's
don't.
more common. Well, maybe not, but it is becoming more common to have like unlimited plans, or just an
Yeah,
amount of minutes that's so high that it won't even really
exactly. And I don't.
matter, or you just
And I
don't
don't
call
know if
it
the
anymore.
limits. Yeah, and I don't know if the limits come from like
But
their
that was a thing
lower.
back then.
Yeah, like, was that just what happened in 2011,
It's
2012? Is
almost
that
10
part of
years ago,
Yeah,
almost.
is that part of British culture? Is it because they're lower income and that's what a lower income phone plan is like? Is it because they're teenagers and so their parents, yeah, like you only get like 50 messages per week and 200 minutes.
Like
Like I don't know exactly where it came from, but it's really
we
interesting in the
we
narrative.
barely had Twitter back then. We we had all of that stuff, but like it.
Remember back when it was only 140 characters?
I know, right? I had to do
You
I
might as
forget
well
what the
just send
thing,
cave
the
painting.
long tweet. Yeah, might as well just send emojis, you know. Um,
That was pre-emoji, Kyle. It just had to be colon
you,
parentheses.
you know what? Ancient technology, cell phones, you know. Uh, um, but yeah, it's this like clashing of worlds when they
Mhm.
meet, and again, it's one of those scenes where they just they don't understand each other, but you can kind of see where they're coming from. Like,
Mhm.
that's one of the moments that I felt like, oh yeah, these guys really are just kids. Like,
Yeah.
they like they're just doing stupid stuff, and that's exactly what the girls were basically saying. They're like, you guys
Mhm.
are just troublemakers, you guys are
Yeah.
like immature little boys. And then the guys are sitting there, no, we are dealing with something that is actually happening right now in the real world, you know. And it's just like, yeah, I understand both sides. Like they're both right and they're both wrong at the same time because
Mhm.
I don't know, but yeah,
Something
maybe
in the
I'm not
movie
wrong.
I really liked was after the scene where they're like, "Yeah, let's all go get weapons and fight these aliens." Like at the beginning of the movie, you see all of the kids go home, like run home to their apartments and like get
Mhm.
something. And it's like one of the kids is like a decorative katana on his wall. Another one is like a bunch of
I
like
loved
fireworks
that
under his
scene.
bed.
That was one of my
That was
favorite
so fun.
scenes.
And but you get to see everybody's different home environment. Like some of them have real, you know, supportive parents that are like, "Okay, honey, you can go back out, but make sure you don't stay out too late and that you call me." And like the one guy's dad is yelling at him and like all of them
Yeah.
have these different family environments and some are a little
Yeah.
easier than others, but they're all still like fairly normal, fairly safe, and you don't realize you never saw Moses go home until the end where he needs to go into his own apartment to booby trap it to, kind of blow up all these aliens.
Or when he sends what's her name, the
Oh, yes, that's
nurse,
right.
to
Yeah,
go
yeah. He
down
sends
there.
Samantha to do it. And she's like, "Who do you live with?" And he's like, "Well, I live with my uncle, but he comes and goes and mostly goes."
Yeah.
And she asks if he has a little brother, and he's like, "No, it's just me." And she's like, "How old are you?" And he's like,
Because
"I'm
she sees the like
15."
Spider-Man comforter,
Yeah. Yeah, like he's like you realize,
it's
"Oh, we
kind
didn't
of
see his."
similar to one I have, but you know what? So, how old are you? Almost 30.
Do you have bigger than a twin size bed though?
Yes.
Oh, okay. See, that's all you need. As long as you don't have a twin size bed, does not matter what kind of
It's a
sheet.
race car bed. No, I'm kidding. I
I,
wish I still had a race car bed. I wish I had a car bed. Period. I never had one.
Kyle, get ready for another Simpsons reference.
Oh no.
There's Millhouse's dad is divorced and he's talking to Homer and he says, "I sleep in a race car bed." Because he's like like trying to he's
I
got his
sleep in a race car bed.
he's just gotten divorced. He's got his cool bachelor
His
apartment.
bachelor
He's Yeah,
pad.
it's like, "I sleep in a race car bed." And Homer's like, "That's nice. I sleep in a big bed with my wife."
So to clarify the thing that I have a quilt that a friend of mine made me,
Oh,
that has like Marvel Comics fabric on
that's
one side.
rad.
One of the best gifts I ever got.
Oh, that's so
Yeah,
good.
yeah,
Dang, my bedding's just from Target. It's not made with love at all.
yeah. But yeah, so again, I guess we're kind of finding this theme of scenes that have like multiple purposes, or you get to
Yeah.
see both sides. Because when I, like, without even thinking about it, when I saw that scene of them all going to their apartments, yeah, the thing that I see is, oh, he's getting his katana, he's getting the fireworks,
Yeah.
oh yeah, hell yeah, and
Mhm.
and but at the same time, yeah, once you sit down and think about it, you like it's these very very quick character moments of,
Yeah.
you get to see their family and who they're, and what life is like for them when they are not out
Yeah.
shooting off these fireworks and beating up
And the theme
aliens.
is
And
that all of them have somebody who is watching over them. Somebody is who's concerned about them from various levels too, from very easy to very strict, but they've got somebody in their life. And then you find out that Moses really has no one. He's not being watched out
yeah,
for. Like, the fact that he's a Spider-Man bed isn't saying that he's I think it's less about, "Oh, look at what a kid this is," and more about like nobody's watching over you. Like nobody ever tried to get you new sheets since the ones you got when you were a little kid. Like nobody is like providing you with anything anymore.
yeah,
Like
which
he's really on his own and he just has to fend for himself.
I think that's, I mean, I didn't have a situation like that, so I guess
Mhm.
I can only speculate. But
Yeah.
I feel like for his character, it's one of those things, yeah, where he feels like that maybe subconsciously, where he didn't have someone to provide for him, so he sees these other kids as someone he can provide
Yeah,
for
like he
and be
really.
this
Mm,
caring, just like, hey, I'll
yeah, and
show you the way,
yeah, he's the boss, but he's not bossy. Like he's not really commanding the other. Nobody is there against their will. He's not bullying any of these
Yeah.
kids into being part of his posse. Like they are all really caring friends. And that was another thing I loved about this movie. Like these kids are all like there's a lot of good-natured joking, but the main group of friends all really like each other. And there's lots of
Hmm.
like nicknames and like I think that like throwing their arm around the other one's shoulders, like
Yeah.
they're really solid friends among everything that's
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah, they're a small little family.
Mhm.
um let's see, what else did I want to talk about. Let's talk a little bit more about the monsters and the like horror aspects of
Mhm.
this stuff, because again, we mentioned at the start that we weren't expecting it.
No. Like I knew what the monsters were going into it, but yeah, it is more tense and less adventurous, I think.
Yeah. uh so from what it says on Wikipedia, it started out, I guess, with two men in gorilla suits, or like gorilla like suits, and the jaws were these like animatronic jaws
Oh.
on them, and then they added on effects to make the like spiky looking fur and all of
Yeah.
that stuff. But there was, I forget when it was in the movie, something I thought was really really cool. They killed one of these
Mm.
aliens, and immediately the like glow drained, like
Yeah.
from the mouth, but it looked like the teeth were then hollow, or something. It looked like it had this practical effect where there was some kind of like glow stick liquid
Mm.
inside it that
Yeah.
when they died, it all drained out of it. I was like,
Yeah.
ooh, that's really cool.
Yeah, that's a real attention to detail that these creatures look different when they're alive versus when they're dead.
Yeah. Or yeah, just there is this obvious thing about them that is no longer
Yeah.
there. My Street Shark action figures that are up in there, they have glow in the dark teeth too,
Wow.
but like when the lights go off, they stay on.
Yeah.
Their teeth are still there. Ah. Um, but yeah, like I'm not sure if that was an actual practical effect
Yeah.
or not, but it looked like it was, at least in that one moment.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I really liked it that they had that. I think it was also it's something that I didn't think about until the end of the
Mhm.
film, but yeah, because when they were sitting there at the start and they first see the like glowing thing, they're like, "Oh, look at its eyes!"
Yeah.
And then immediately they make the comment of, "Oh, actually, I don't think those
Yeah,
are
like it's got
eyes."
two like big fangs sticking out of its closed mouth. They just see these two dots and they're like, eyes?
Yeah,
Yeah, I like that they
but
really have no idea what it is. Because I
well,
think there's a lot of movies where somebody will find an alien and they'll say, that's an alien. I don't know anything about it, but I can tell that it's not of this earth. They're really trying to figure out, like,
is that a
is this
wolf?
an animal?
Is that a coyote? Is that a dog?
And
Who
didn't
knows?
this was
But
probably hold on. Wasn't
terrified?
this just wasn't this just shortly after the Montauk monster? Do you remember that?
No, I don't
Okay.
know what that is referring to.
The the Montauk monster. Montauk is a city in like New York or New Jersey somewhere. There was this creature that somebody found washed upon the shore and nobody was sure what it was.
Huh?
And there's let me find a picture of this thing. Yeah, it was this
I would.
mysterious carcass and people were like, "Okay, is this like a weird dog? Is this the inside of a turtle without its shell? Is this a raccoon without any fur?" Like, are you looking this up? Do you remember this?
I
Because
am looking this up. No, I've never even heard of this.
this was a big deal when this came out, and I think it was okay. Let's see what Wikipedia says, because I think this was also like early 2008.
Okay.
Yeah, an animal carcass thought to be a raccoon washed ashore on a beach near
That
the
is definitely
business
not a
district of
raccoon.
Montauk, New York. The identity of the creature and the veracity of the stories surrounding it have been the subject of controversy and speculation. It is not it is not known what happened to the carcass. It was said to have mysteriously disappeared. Yeah, this was almost like a cryptid. Like everybody was trying to figure out like what is this thing? Is this a mutant? Did somebody test on this thing?
Insert
You know,
X-Files theme here.
exactly, like everybody was like, what made this look like what it
Weird.
is this just sort of a natural defect? Is this something man-made?
I would
I don't know.
show
And
people on our thing, but my
it's
thing to hook it up to the thing is not working. So you guys are just gonna have to look it up on your own.
yeah, and the fact that and the boy is trying to figure out like, okay, is this like a dog? Is this a wolf? Is this a gorilla? Like the fact that they're trying to place this within the natural world of a real animal that they know that just had something happen to it
Yeah.
reminded me a lot of this thing. And I
Okay.
wonder if that was like an influence or just uh,
Who knows?
just two things that happened here in the 21st century and they remind me of each other.
Yeah. Um. So what I was gonna say is this is something that I didn't even think about till the end of the film, but when they first see the monsters, yeah, they do make that comment of like, I don't think those are the eyes, and that's when it opens up its mouth, and you're
Yeah.
like, oh, that's a mouth. But I didn't realize it until the end of the film that those things are blind, that they're
Yeah,
like
they don't have
I
eyes.
didn't put that together until they kind of hypothesized like, what if it's the pheromones of this other thing that we
Mm.
killed at the start of the film? Like, what if this one is the female and they're all like wanting to, like, they're going crazy because of this thing, which makes sense, but that's like, it's not even something that crossed my mind. I was like, oh, that's cool that like they
Yeah,
can't
I
even
like
see.
that twist a lot. They're just following scent, and
Yeah.
it's just this like natural process.
And maybe one of them, Moses, has the
Mm.
pheromones on him because he went in there to fight the thing, and he
Yeah,
got
yeah.
scratched
And I
by
yeah,
this.
and like they have to take that like black light and like shine it all over everybody to find out like, okay, who's clean? Like, there's some on your pants. Can you take your pants off? Oh, that I liked. Yeah.
Yeah, that was neat. Um and yeah, like this is I would also say one of the films that I have a hard time being like, I want more, but I don't, because I feel like this was so good the way it was. Like, it
Yeah,
gives
I
you
feel like
everything you need.
it was
But
explained just enough. Yeah.
yeah, but I like, that would be one of the things that I want more of. Oh, you figured out this thing that they're blind and they can't see you or really smell you per se unless you have these pheromones on them. Can, like, I want to see more of that. How do they sneak around and do more of that? Who knows,
Yeah,
um
like how would they be behaving if they weren't chasing after these female pheromones that got
sure.
onto Moses? Yeah.
Sure, or yeah, just like they have to go save someone else and they need to
Mhm.
sneak past them and something like that. Or yeah, who knows?
Mhm.
I just I like that concept, and I'm just like, ooh, what else could they do? They could do this. They could do that. They could do everything.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, but yeah, they did a really good job
Mhm.
with the effects on this film. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it a lot. What else? Do you have anything else you want to say? I think I'm
I
about done.
I just want to I've got one final thing. This seems
Sure.
like a good closer to our conversation. I was trying to figure out what is the theme of this movie. And I think
Ooh.
the theme is responsibility. very
Responsibility.
specifically, in that your actions have consequences, or
Yes.
even that the actions of other people have consequences. And even if you didn't do anything, you still have to step up and try your best to help. Like there's a big class issue in this movie.
Hmm.
Like, the block is this huge, like seemingly like low income housing project that everybody lives in. And whenever we go into the individual apartments, they actually look quite nice. Like they're painted, they're decorated. Each little apartment looks like a real home, but like the hallways are sort of like flat concrete and like harsh neon lights, and like there's doors that have to have security gates on them, and the whole
Hmm.
outside of everything is just like stark and clinical, and they're in a rough neighborhood. Like I get
Yeah.
the impression that it's not just these boys causing trouble, like they live in a troublesome place. I mean, the guy who kind of secretly runs the building is this drug dealer who like gives Moses cocaine that he has to sell to kind of earn his keep around there.
Hmm.
And there's a mention throughout the movie of like the government should be doing something about this. Why are they letting this happen? Like, Moses says, I think it was Moses, it was one of them for sure, that says like, yeah, maybe they just sent the aliens here to try and
Yeah.
kill us off because they don't want us
Which
anymore.
is which is he says that at the end of being like, they gave us, he mentions a couple of things like drugs, then they gave us guns, and
Hmm.
then maybe they sent this thing. And that's, as weird as the aliens are, that's not an uncommon thought for
Mm-hmm.
people in lower income housing, or just in those urban settings. Like I've absolutely met people who think that way.
Hmm.
I don't know how true that is. That's not my experience. I
No.
don't know how much I can comment on that. But yeah, at the same time, from what I've seen, it's not
Hmm.
not necessarily far off, but
Yeah.
it's yeah, there is this idea of responsibility and stepping up past that I
Yeah,
think
and
this
even if
film
it's
has.
not like the current council people of the community that are responsible for the current culture of the community,
Hmm.
it's still like, okay, even if you didn't do it, you're in a place of power to help. Step up and try to do something. Like lend out your hand and sort of take charge. And Moses, he's got this, like I wish I remembered her name, but like the girl he kind of like says, like, you're a troublemaker, like trouble follows you. You're always making things worse. This is kind of a habit and kind of a personality trait that he has, this
Hmm.
flaw, but very specifically, like this monster kind of runs out and attacks him, and he's like, I'm going to kill it.
Yeah.
And he just goes in and he flat out kills the thing. And that didn't bring the aliens down on them, but it brought, all together to Earth. Like this alien came down, and that's why all the aliens are following him. That's why they are inside his block.
Yeah.
And he's like, if I hadn't have just killed that one, there would have been still been death and destruction, but like he brought it specifically to his own home, to his own friends. He's like, I did this. I made my bed. I'm going to lie in it. Like, this is for me to fix now, no matter what it takes.
I'm wondering if there's some kind of difference or like eureka moment that maybe Moses had, of like, sure, he could step up by leading his gang and selling drugs. They were excited for him when Hi Hat was like, "Hey, we're
Yeah, it
gonna
was.
move you up to some bigger stuff. You're not
Yeah,
gonna
they
have
were
to
like, that's
rob."
yeah, like that's a promotion in
Yeah.
their eyes.
So
They're like, oh boy, you get to sell cocaine? Really? How
yeah, so
exciting.
I'm wondering if there's some kind of like eureka moment or something similar for Moses when he, I guess, kind of sees the difference between stepping up and having responsibility in that way, or providing
Yeah.
for people another way, like
Mhm.
having to actually protect them against bad things. Like
Hmm.
I don't know if he sees a difference there, or like that may be the one part of his character that I still don't know about yet.
You were looking for a change where he realizes I've been doing wrong things for good reasons. Now I need to do good things for
Yeah,
good
yeah,
reasons.
not
Hmm.
necessarily where it's all sunshine and rainbows, but
Yeah.
just like, hey, there's a better way. We still might be in a
Yes.
really shitty situation. We still might have to do some really shitty things,
Hmm.
but yeah, like
Yeah.
I like it is the example. I'm wondering if there's a moment where he sat there and thought of like, hey, is the example I'm setting for these other kids, like, is it the right one?
Yeah, I think that's a really good way of putting it. Like this is a movie about finding a better way to do something.
Hey, but yeah, but that I think would be the one thing that I don't know if was really resolved with his
Mm.
character. Because at the end we just, yeah, he's a badass and he's 15 years old and he, by the end of the film they're all like, Moses, Moses, Moses. So yeah, like you again, you come to really love him and his character,
Yeah.
but I I'm wondering if there's another lesson for him to have learned from all of that.
Maybe.
Nice.
I this is I'm really impressed by this movie and that it is just such a fun action adventure sci-fi like dark comedy. It's a romp, it's a fun breezy like 90 minutes, but it
Yeah.
also has this much like gravity to it and
Mm-hmm.
thematic weight to it.
Exactly.
There's this does so much in such a short amount of time. Why did it take us so long to watch this? Like after I watched this
Yeah.
movie, and I mentioned like this is something I've always heard good things about. I feel
Cult
like people
classic.
reference it. Yeah, people reference it fairly often. But after I watched it, I'm like, why aren't more people talking about this more of the time?
Exactly. Let me see if um looking at all the accolades it got. It looks like it won a bunch of awards, but
Mm,
maybe nothing like big. It looks like it won a lot of stuff from like film festivals and stuff like that. So
good.
good for it. Good for it. Um, yeah, I think that might be all we have to say on Attack the Block.
Yeah, great time. Recommended. Go
I'm
watch it.
I'm trying to think of something people might like if they
Hmm.
liked this film. Um, I would say check out, when was this one made? Let me see. There's a movie called Dread, and
Oh, I don't know if I know this.
it is based off the Judge Dredd comics.
Really?
There's
Oh,
some older ones starring still Sylvester Stallone. Those are not the ones I'm talking about. There's one from 2012, again
was
right
this?
around this same time.
Oh, who
Um,
was in that? Was that Carl Urban?
I think so.
Okay. I remember why
Yeah,
would
starring Carl
how are these
Urban.
connecting for you? I'm
So
intrigued. I'm not
it's
seeing immediately the connection between the two.
it's not. I mean, I guess you could say it's a sci-fi, that
Mm.
type of stuff, but it is. It's one of those things where it mainly takes place all inside one apartment building.
Oh,
The
okay.
action happens throughout all of that stuff. It is this very kind of violent, just
Mm.
non-stop action that is happening there. So that might be an interesting one to check out. I remember while watching it a year or two after it came out. I watched it
Okay.
on my phone on the really, really old, shitty Netflix app when it like first
Oh,
launched on my iPhone on like a really terrible Wi-Fi connection. It was
Why did you do
awful
this?
because we were out in like Montana or something visiting family. There was nothing for me to do, so I was just sitting there hoping I could watch this
Oh,
film, and I watched the whole thing. It was terrible quality, but the movie itself I thought was really good for
oh,
what it was. You
I'd
guys might
say
like
that.
that.
Yeah, I'd say that Attack the Block reminded me of there's a Stephen King story called The Langoliers,
The
and
Langoliers.
this was turned into a TV miniseries sometime in the 90s. And it was something that I had these memories from like my entire childhood. And it took
Hmm.
me until I was like 17 to figure out what the heck it was. Because I was remembering these monsters, these black, spiny, like kind of sea urchin looking monsters that had all of these people trapped inside an airport. And I grew up like trying to explain this thing to people and like nobody knew what it was because this is like it's Stephen King but it's one of his more obscure stories. I
Okay.
don't think the miniseries did that well. Like nobody remembered this thing and finally I tracked it down when I was like 17 and it's the execution isn't great. I don't know if I would watch it again outside of the nostalgia factor, but the premise behind it is interesting, which is that it's all of these it's these people. It's also kind of like Lost. It's these people on a plane
Mm-hmm.
and their plane arrives and they kind of had no memory of like their memories are very fuzzy of like how did we like I remember getting on the plane. Do you remember the flight at all? Like how did we get here? And they get into this airport terminal and it's only like 10 people out of this entire plane that like wake up. They're the only people left. Like nobody's there and they sort of wake up and they walk into this airplane terminal and it's completely empty
Weird.
and there's these creatures that have got them surrounded that are like out there on the tarmac and they've got this black spiky look to them, which is why Attack of the Block reminded me
Okay.
of these things.
That
And
makes
they're
sense.
just slowly like rolling in and they also have the ability to kind of like they crack open and they've got these big mouths and they kind of like gobble reality like they just eat reality.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's weird.
Huh.
It's like
Okay.
really like 90s made for TV cheesiness. So I don't know if this is like it's not going to be as good as Dread. It's certainly not going to be as good as this. But
Jared
if you
is
just
also one of those like it didn't do well necessarily critically or wasn't well received in the theaters, but it's like one of those like cult hits,
really
like yeah. So
I don't know. Yeah, I don't think The Langoliers is a cult hit. I think it's just an oddity that haunted me throughout my entire childhood. I'm like, well, I might as well
where
tell other human beings
where did you
about
see
it.
it in your childhood? Like who
I think
showed you the Langoliers?
I think it was just on TV and
Who
like my
was the
parents were just
Langolier?
that's the name of those creatures. They're called Langoliers. I don't know why. Like I think my parents were just channel surfing through and it happened to watch some of it while I was in the room.
Okay.
Weird stuff. Yeah, if you just want to watch something kind of that is both eerie and very corny, I don't know. See if you can track down the Langoliers.
There you go. Good stuff.
Kyle,
Melissa, it is your turn to pitch.
it's pitch time.
Hell
My
yeah.
my theme for pitches this week is stuff I keep mentioning and you don't know what it is.
Okay.
Like things I will bring up as, oh, I love this thing, and this reminds me of this thing, and you're like, I think I've heard of that. I know that name, maybe.
I think she's making them up.
No, I promise you, they are all real, and one of them could be yours to enjoy for yourself this week. Pitch number one. This is something I think I just brought up like 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
This is the Disney Channel cartoon series Gravity Falls.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of this one, but I've never seen it. I
This
don't get
premiered-
any of the references that you've made.
It's so good. This premiered in 2012. It was created by Alex Hirsch, and it's loosely based on it's like a fantastical version of his own childhood where him and his twin sister would spend summers with their grandpa out in like the forests of Oregon. So the story of Gravity Falls is these two twin 12-year-olds are going to spend the summer with their great uncle who runs a roadside mystery shack that really is just like absolute absolute hokum. Like it's all fake. It's all like PT Barnum nonsense. Like, well, the ball rolls uphill. Like it's all that kind of stuff. And they're like, oh god, this summer's gonna be real boring. But they find out that the town they're in has real supernatural stuff going on.
Interesting.
And they find a mysterious journal that like gives them clues. Like somebody has been investigating this before, and they need to find out who it is. And it's
Sounds
just
fun.
it's really fun. It's an incredibly strong series, and it's a really good mix of ongoing mythology and like really fun Monster of the Week episodes.
Sweet.
And the whole series is on Hulu, and we can watch season 1, and that's just 20 episodes.
Nice.
Which I say just 20 because I thought I remembered it being 26 because this show does a lot. Like, what I remember seems like it should be more than 20 episodes worth. It is that much going on to it.
Well, 20 to 26 half an hour long episodes. They're really more like 20 minute, like 22 minutes long each. So it ends up being like a 13 episode hour long TV show. It's not that bad for a week. Cool. That's pitch number 1.
Pitch number 2 is you've heard me talk about the Thrilling Adventure Hour, and I think this is something else where you knew the name and the basic concept of it.
This is
nothing else.
Is it one of the podcasts from Maximum Fun?
It's not on Maximum Fun. It's on a network called Forever Dog now.
Okay.
This is a little hard to explain. This was a live stage show in Los Angeles that was done in the style of old-time radio. So it wasn't a play, it wasn't a comedy show. It was like a staged reading. People would come out, not in costumes, but just in like nice outfits. They'd all wear like suits and nice old dresses, and they'd come out and they'd read from their scripts, and it would just be like you're live watching an audio drama be performed.
Sure. Yeah.
And it was all these different stories, kind of in the vein of what old radio stories used to be like. You know, like there's a Western, and there's a, fun supernatural story.
There's the Shadow.
Yeah, there's something like the Shadow.
Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men? The Shadow knows.
Yes, there's something just like that. And these recordings were released as a podcast. This is one of my favorite podcasts. I loved all of these stories, and these were ongoing stories. They had a couple different ones under the Thrilling Adventure Hour branch.
Okay.
I loved all of these stories, but it's kind of big and unwieldy to like listen to. Like there's no season breaks. They put all the episodes all in one feed together, so you kind of had to hop around a bunch. And now I believe the old feed is behind a paywall. This is something I love that is very difficult to introduce to new people, but they produce some comic books. So my pitch is there is a collection of 5 of these comic issues called The Thrilling Adventure Hour, A Spirited Romance.
Sam is mentioning in the chat, we drank some blood, but the people were on drugs, and now I'm a wizard. I don't know if that's a reference to something or not, but I saw it and I was like, yes, I'm gonna read that.
Not that I remember. I do not remember this happening in Thrilling Adventure Hour, and I hardcore listened to all of it, so I'm not exactly sure what she's talking about. This is a collection of 5 comic book issues all in like one thing together. This is on Comixology Unlimited. You can go listen, you can go read it there. It is written by the creators of the whole show, which is a 2-writer team named Ben Acker and Ben Blacker, which sound like fake stage names, but they are real names of 2 real men that met each other and became friends because
Laser and Laser.
They became friends because they're like, hey, our names are almost exactly the same. Isn't that weird? And then they ended up hitting it off and being really good friends and writing this thing together.
Sweet.
So they are the original creators. They wrote the audio drama. Then they tried their hand at writing it as a comic book, and the art is by Phil Hester.
Okay. I know the name Phil Hester, too.
Yeah, I've read a couple of these. The art looks really nice. And this is the Beyond Belief storyline from The Thrilling Adventure Hour, which is this posh, rich, high society couple named Frank and Sadie Doyle, who are drunks, and all they want to do is hang out in their and drink and just have flirty banter with each other. But they can see ghosts and talk to spirits, and they are the number one supernatural mediums in
Okay.
New York City. And everybody keeps knocking at their door, like, help us with this problem. There's a werewolf, there's a vampire. And they're like, oh, fine, okay. All right, what do we have to do to get you to go away? Like, it's two people that are beyond qualified to be heroes that don't care about being heroes.
Okay.
It's
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, it was fun as a podcast, and I read a couple of these comic issues, and it's still fun as a comic. And I know this was a very long explanation for what this thing is, but that's why I want to pitch you the comic, because the podcast, as much as I love it, is unwieldy and complicated, but I can give you this one graphic novel that will help explain it to you.
Interesting.
Yes, bit of an odd pitch there. Pitch number 3. Do you remember when we watched Wet Hot American Summer last year and you asked me, like, oh, this is a big cast. Whose performance was your favorite? And I said David Hyde Pierce, and you said, I don't know who that is. I'm like, from Frasier. And he's like,
I've never seen Frasier.
Well, it's Frasier, Kyle. Pitch number 3 is Frasier. I'm amazed you didn't see this one. Like, I know everybody's parents had their own favorite sitcoms growing
Seinfeld.
up. You were a Seinfeld family. We were a Frasier family. So I would like to pitch season 1.
Okay, season 1 of Frasier.
Frasier. It's this is from some. I googled it and I googled really black paint and it's not link up anymore. It's just all pictures of that really black paint. But season 1, it's 24 episodes long. This is a half-hour sitcom you can find on Netflix. And the premise of this is that Frasier Crane is a psychologist. And he has a radio show where people call in, describe their problem, like 10 minutes. He gives them as much advice as they can. It's like a radio call-in show from like a real serious, academic psychologist. And his brother is also a very serious academic psychologist. And they're both very cultured and very pretentious. And Frasier lives with their dad, who's just this retired old cop. And he's just like this real down-to-earth, like very normal man who loves like beer and baseball and does not know how to. And they have a live-in maid, not a maid. She's like the dad has a police injury and she's the live-in like physical therapist and maid and cook, etc., etc. It's a sitcom. There's all these little characters orbiting. There's Frasier's radio producer, all of these people. And it's just the adventures of a very pretentious man trying to navigate life and trying to keep his ego from getting in the way. This is something I kind of watched as a kid because my dad liked it, but honestly, I did not get, because it is not a show for children.
Sure.
But I tried watching again as an adult, and I'm like, oh, I get it now. This is fantastic. And this is a show that, since it has been added to Netflix, has seen a real resurgence, especially with younger people. Like, people our age and younger, like, I love Frasier. This is great. Could be yours,
but Melissa, you just said it's not for kids.
I mean, like, teenagers are getting into it. This was not a show I could follow when my dad's watching it and I'm 8 years old. But like teenagers, young, like post-millennials are like, Frasier's good stuff. We love Frasier.
Frasier. Okay. So pitch number 1. You have to remind me what was
pitch number 1 was season 1 of Gravity Falls. That's 20 episodes. Pitch number 2 was The Thrilling Adventure Hour, a spirited romance. This is a 5-issue, a graphic novel comprising of 5 issues. So it's like 100 and something pages, not that long. That's on Comixology Unlimited. And then pitch number 3 is season 1 of Frasier. That's 24 half-hour episodes, and that one's all on Netflix.
Okay. I am interested in Gravity Falls.
I figured you would be, and then spent all that time explaining the next two pitches anyway, because
But
that's the job.
so I think Frasier was the one that I was least interested in. But
Still sit down and watch an episode of this sometime, because I just need you to understand what I'm talking about. I'm baffled that this piece of 90s culture missed you 100%.
yeah, it missed my entire family.
Try it. Try one Frasier.
Sure.
Okay.
I will report back on an episode of the Captain's
We will
Log.
take the Frasier Pact.
But yeah, I'm interested in the comic book too, especially seeing it. Is this an adaptation of actual episodes of the podcast, or is it just?
I think it's original stories. Yeah,
Okay.
there might be one or two adaptations in there, but I think they're original stories.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I just was interested in how that worked out. How do you adapt that and stuff like that? So
I think they've done other comic adaptations of the podcast stories, but I don't know if they're collected in that volume I was talking about.
Okay. Gotcha. But Gravity Falls.
Yes.
Is what I am interested in. You told me with like spooky mystery, weird stuff is happening in the town. That is right up my alley.
Yeah, and it's when it gets spooky, it gets sincerely really good spooky. I think some of the best stuff might be in season 2, but season 1 also has some heavy hitters for, oh, that's really scary for a Disney Channel cartoon.
They every now and then they have some stuff that will surprise you.
Mm-hmm.
So I am looking forward to that. That is what we will do this next week. Melissa.
Yes.
Where can they find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Wilkywit. That's ILKYWIT. You can go see some pictures from that wedding I was in.
Yeah.
I'm all glammed up and pretty.
Exactly. And I am at Yo Kyle Springer on both Twitter and Instagram. If you guys want updates with this show or any of the other podcasts that we do, we are at the Whatnauts on Twitter. If you guys would like to support us on Patreon, patreon.com/the Whatnauts is where you guys can throw us all your life savings. That would be fantastic. You know, who needs a 401k? You know? At the $1 tier, you can get access to the live streams of this podcast, as well as all of our episodes early. At the $3 tier, you can get exclusive content, like the episode on Shrek Retold that we just did.
That was fun.
Go check that out. And at the $5 tier, you guys can get thanked here on the podcast, which means thank you to Sam and Christine for supporting us and chipping in and helping us out with all of our hosting costs and stuff like that. You guys are the real MVPs. Help keep the mics on. This has been episode 58 of the Whatnauts Review Show. We will see you guys next week. Adios.
Bye.
Thank you so much for checking out that episode of the Whatnauts Review Show. If you guys liked it, go subscribe to our channel right up that way. Hit that button right up there. And maybe go watch one of our other videos right down here. We have a lot for you guys to check out, so it would be sweet if you guys could help us out and do that. Thank you very much. We will see you next time.